Practice the art of leaving people in their hell. If people are being mean to you, they're already in hell. You don't have to fight with them. You don't have to get sucked into their hell. You can just leave them there. You cannot be afraid of them. You cannot think about them. You can say literally nothing to them. They can sit there, da 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 da, and you say nothing. Nothing. If you fight back, it's bad for you. You start getting all worked up. You're crazy. You're crazier than these people. You can't be getting as worked up as them. This isn't good. You shouldn't bring yourself down to their level. Their level is hell, anger, misery, no compassion, no love. You are love, compassion, no misery, full of love. You just love everybody. Stop giving in to Satan.
I feel like there's this negative connotation that comes with people who expose people who abuse them, and they say like they're bitter, they're miserable, they're this and that. But what about the people that actually did it to you? They're out there probably abusing somebody else, doing the same thing they did to you, but worse, because there were no precautions or there are no type of consequences for them. So why is there this pass for toxic people to be like, just move on, you're better than that, let them sulk? I understand that, but to a certain extent, you're letting these people get away with murder, essentially. Getting away with abusing people, getting away with gaslighting people, like all of these different things that these toxic people are doing. I'm not excusing shit. I'm going to expose you. I'm going to call you out. And if you don't fucking like it and you think I'm miserable, then that's your motherfucking journey, bitch. That's not how I do it. I'll expose your ass.
Stop feeling guilty for standing on business, bitch. Because why would I feel bad for holding a grudge when you did some nut-ass shit to me? Like, you did me dirty as fuck. You need to go somewhere and feel bad about that shit. Why would I feel bad for not liking you? Because you did something to deserve it. No.
Have you ever noticed that when somebody finally speaks up about what's going on, somehow they become the problem? Not the person causing the harm, not the dysfunction, and not the unhealthy pattern that's been happening for years. Somehow the person that talks about it becomes the problem and the target. I've seen this happen in many families, relationships, friendships, churches, communities, and small towns. It's like the moment somebody says, like, hey, this is not okay, everyone gets uncomfortable. And from the outside, it looks confusing because you're sitting there thinking like, why is everybody upset with me for telling the truth? But what's really happening, it's way deeper than that. Every family and every community has unspoken rules. Rules that nobody says out loud. Things like don't question certain people. Don't bring up uncomfortable topics. Like, don't talk about what happened. Don't challenge the things that everybody agrees to. Just keep the peace, even when that peace is costing somebody's well-being. Baby, the moment that you stop playing that role, people notice. And it's not because you're wrong, but it's because you're disturbing something that they've been comfortable with for years. And that's where a lot of people abandon themselves. Because being misunderstood hurts, and being judged hurts, and losing relationship hurts. Especially when it's people you genuinely loved. But from a spiritual perspective, this is one of the biggest lessons you will ever have to face. Can you trust what to know to be true even when other people don't agree? Can you choose yourself without needing everybody's permission? Can you stop shrinking just because your growth makes other people uncomfortable? Because most of the time, the people who tell the truth lose the crowd, but they find themselves. And baby, in the wrong one, trust me, that's worth a lot more. The lesson was never learning how to keep everybody happy. The lesson was learning how to stop abandoning yourself just to belong.
You gave your family member one last chance to own up to what they did, but they doubled down and lost access to you forever. You have a family member out there that's more concerned with preserving like their self-image than fixing things with you. And it just confused you because on your end, you were willing to do whatever it took to maintain that relationship with your family member. You have been exhausted, like you have been trying. And in that last instance, you knew it was going to be the last straw. And you tried to get them to own up to it, and they just doubled down on whatever they were doing or trying to misunderstand you or dismiss what you were talking about. And that was enough for you to be like, hey, you know what? That's fine. You walked away from that person, and not to say like you didn't forgive them. You have forgave them, but you also understood that forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation. And that family member is shocked because they didn't expect you to do that. They saw you growing up and they thought you would always be like a pushover, but now you have changed. Like, you've been growing as a person, and it doesn't matter if it's a family member, friend, dog, relationship. If that person is disrespecting you, they're going to lose access to you.
And yes, I do silent cutoffs. No, I don't have to explain why you were weird. You already know what you did. I know you do, because you're acting weird. Like, there's no reason for me to explain what you did. You might question it. You might want to come and ask me. I'm not responding. I'm cutting all weirdness out 2026. Like, I can't do this no more. Like, it's just too much weird fakeness in the air, and it's throwing me off. It's throwing me off my balance. It's making me feel crazy. And mind you, I'm not crazy. I know exactly what's happening to me, and I know exactly how it's making me feel. I'm not associated with that, and I don't have to tell you that I'm not associated with that. Just get out of my life. You was weird. Take your loss. Count it as a loss and double it and give it to the next person. Give it to your best friend. Give it to your homegirl. Give it to them. I don't need it. Because you're weird. I don't know how to explain that. I don't want to be around no weirdness. I don't want to be I just don't like that. It just doesn't sit right in my soul. So I'm gonna remove myself. And if it hurts your feelings, it hurts your feelings, because you've been hurting my feelings.
Abusers be like, yeah, I hurt you, but you told everyone, so that's worse.
A few weeks ago, I asked you guys, what's the most unhinged thing a flying monkey or enabler has ever said to you to defend the narcissist in your life? I got hundreds of responses. Here are the top 10. Number 10, why don't you just be the bigger person? The bigger person has been the bigger person their entire life, even when they were a child. And that's literally how they ended up here. Number 9, do you ever think it was just you? Yes, actually, for years. That's called gaslighting, and it worked until it didn't. And if you're interested, I have a free masterclass on how to stop gaslighting yourself after narcissistic abuse. Just head over to the link in my bio to register. Number 8, you must have done something to make them behave that way. Guess what? A grown adult is responsible for their own behavior. Number 7, there's just a misunderstanding between you guys. A misunderstanding, right? A decades-long fucking misunderstanding. Number 6, that's just how she is. So being an abuser is fine as long as you're consistent about it. Got it. Number 5, they've had a really tough life. You have no idea what they've been through. Guess what? Having a hard life doesn't give you a license to destroy someone else's life and give them a hard life. And guess what? That person's not going around abusing everyone. So come up with something a little more original, thanks. Number 4, hurt people hurt people. Okay. So, like, we all have an excuse to hurt people if we've been hurt. Cool. Give me a fucking break. Number 3, they always seem perfectly nice to me. Oh my God. Guess what? That's the whole fucking point. Narcissists are not abusive with everyone they come in contact with. They are very calculated, and they only have a few select targets, and they perform this nice person act for everyone else. The fact that they're nice to you is not evidence that abuse didn't happen. It's evidence that you're not the target. That's like saying about a murderer, well, they didn't murder me, okay? Like, why the fuck do we... Why the fuck do we have trials for murder cases then? Like, they didn't murder everyone, just like a few people or one person. Let's just hope that enabler is not a judge or anything like that. And they're probably too stupid to be one, so. Number 2, you should just deal with it because she's old and she could die soon. Weaponizing death to keep you in contact with someone actively harming you is one of the most disgusting flying monkey tactics. Also, what if you die, the target? What if you die and you never knew peace? Why does it always have to be about them dying? We're not promised tomorrow.
F you, f you, f you. You're cool. F you, I'm out.
I don't care what anyone says. You should never be expected to be the bigger person when you didn't create the discomfort in the first place. Too many people cause chaos, cross lines, then they want you to swallow your feelings just to keep the peace. No thanks. Accountability matters. Being mature doesn't mean accepting disrespect or cleaning up messes you didn't make. Sometimes protecting your peace means burning the bridge because you're happy to swim.
Jealous women use humiliation and bullying in order to attack other women. That's why it's important that you know how to read a room and understand when you are around women who do not like you. Jealous women will use humiliation in order to make you feel like you don't belong. Women who like to use humiliation tactics, they will typically get a whole group of women together in order to gang up on you. And it's very subtle, it's very covert, and you will not even realize it until you're in that situation. As I have mentioned before about dear Shanquella Robinson, who lost her life due to being around people who she thought were her friends, and they turned out to be her biggest haters, her biggest enemies, her biggest jealous people in her life. People like that are very subtle, and they like to humiliate you and to bring you down when they perceive that you're a little too high up. People who are jealous and envious of you, they will always have receipts for something. Even if everything is going great in your life right now, jealous people, people who like to use humiliation against you, they will dig into your past, dig into a perceived flaw. They will look at something about you or find out something about you and use that as an opportunity to clown and humiliate you. People only do this because they're jealous. People only do this because they perceive you as some kind of threat. People only dig into your history and dig into your past when they feel like that you are superseding them in some way. And the biggest strategy they use is to get other people on board with their jealousy. You see this a lot in women groups because women, they really are, not all women, but many women, they can be very hostile. They can be bullies. Everybody knows that. A lot of women have a very bully mentality. And when they don't like someone, they will get other people to rally behind their hate. And that is how you end up with all these fake friend groups and women who are in these situations where now they're being harmed because of it. That's why you have to recognize when somebody is trying to set you up and they don't really care about you as a person. You have some women that will invite you to, they'll invite you to parties, to events, all so they can pick you apart and belittle you. They will invite you into places where they know you might not be familiar with the crowd, you might not be familiar with the territory. And if you are not a woman of wisdom, if you don't have that discernment and wisdom to realize when somebody is trying to bait you, you will fall into the trap of a jealous woman who seeks to humiliate you. Have you ever had somebody ask you a question about something and you just got the feeling that they really don't care about what you're saying? They just want to make fun of how you're speaking? I'll give you a real life story about myself. And it's not so much a story as it is just things that used to happen to me. People, especially women, they would make fun of how I speak because I speak more proper compared to the women that I was around. They spoke more so in slang and cursing and all of that. And I'll never forget, I was having a conversation with a few girls and I had to be like maybe in my early 20s. And they said to me, why are you talking like you're in an interview? Why are you talking like that? Why are you talking like a white girl? Why do you sound like that? And they would deliberately ask me things. And me, and a woman who is not jealous and petty, just a little sidebar, sometimes, especially if you're not there yet where you have that heightened discernment, that intuition, that wisdom, you won't even realize when a woman is trying to play in your face, when she's trying to just bait you and say little things in order to humiliate you or clown you in some way. You won't even realize it. It took me growing in wisdom and maturing as a woman in order to realize when I had women around me who really didn't like me, they wanted to use me for their entertainment. And as confident women, as you develop in your self-esteem and your self-love, you will realize that you are nobody's entertainment. But until you get to that point, sometimes you might be subjected to women who desire to be jealous and envious and want to clown you in some way, and you don't even realize it. So they would ask me questions about things knowing that I'm into the topic, but they would clown me because I'm into the topic. You know, I was more of like a book nerd, a bookworm. You know, I like those kind of things. And I know they didn't like those kind of things, but, you know, naive me thinking that they're really interested in what I'm talking about. And the whole time I find out they're just making fun of me. They're talking about me, you know, pretty much I'm the geek among the group. And those kind of things don't stop, unfortunately, with women as you age. You would think it would, but it gets even deeper. As the subjects in life and the matters in life get deeper with women, so does the bullying and hatred among women, oftentimes. Some women might know that you were having issues in your relationship, maybe issues with your children, and they will be so nasty, so petty, so devious. A lot of women, their jealousy goes that deep. And somebody might be asking, well, if you had all of these negative things about you, why would they be jealous of that? If these bad things happen to you, why are they jealous of you? Why do you think they're jealous of you? Jealous women can sense a sweet and gentle spirit.
Emotional access, even negative emotional access. It doesn't need to be positive. I don't care. Your anger still feeds control. Your sadness still feeds control. Your obsession feeds the control. But indifference, peace, going no contact, emotional detachment from me, that feels like absolute death to a narcissist. And this is why many narcissists escalate when they feel somebody emotionally starting to slip away. Suddenly, all of a sudden, they become nicer, more emotional, more vulnerable. And then on the flip side of that, they can also, if they know you well enough, they'll be the opposite. They'll be crueler, colder, more financially controlling, more manipulative. Because if emotional control stops working, then there's something that they go to next. They move to practical control. And this is where financial abuse often appears massively. Because if I were a narcissist and I could no longer control you emotionally, if I no longer had a place in your heart, I would try to control your survival. How does that look? That means I would control your money, legal stress, delay stuff. I would cause fear and uncertainty, because as long as I can still emotionally disturb your nervous system, part of me still feels connected to you psychologically. You're still part of my supply. That's why some narcissists drag out separation for years and years. And it's not because they love someone deeply, because they cannot tolerate losing emotional dominance completely. That's what they're doing. But here is the part narcissists hate most of all. If you eventually sort everything out legally, rebuild financially, heal emotionally, and stop reacting to them completely, if I'm a narcissist, I lose. Not because I lost somebody who loved me perfectly, but because I lost access to controlling somebody who once emotionally revolved all around me. That is the wound narcissists struggle with. Watching somebody they once controlled become emotionally unreachable to them, especially when that person becomes totally peaceful without them. And the strange part about all this is, if I were a narcissist, I might even sit there convincing myself I never cared about you anyway. However, deep down, what hurts is realizing that I no longer influence your emotional world. You no longer fear me, need me, chase me, explain yourself to me. You simply moved on. That is the thing narcissists struggle with the most. Not lost love, okay? It's not that they lost you as a partner. It's losing control. There's no sentimental value. And I think some of you watching this need to hear this deeply today. The moment you emotionally reconnect with yourself fully, the narcissist loses their strong weapon against you, because narcissistic control only survives through emotional access. And when somebody can no longer emotionally reach you at all, the entire system starts to collapse.
People who have broken people down to their core, left them feeling like they're not enough, left them feeling that they were worthless people, left them not knowing who they were anymore, left them doubting reality. Is that forgivable? I'm not so sure. And so I will always tell everyone I work with, this is a personal decision. It is not right to forgive. It is not right to not forgive. It is not wrong to forgive. It is not wrong to not forgive. You have to do what makes you whole. Resentment does not push forward healing. I think that it's one more place where people are forced to be inauthentic. Some people will say, and I'll be frank with you, Lewis, I have probably I can think of a half a dozen people, narcissistic people in my life. I am now no contact with, some I still have contact with. I don't forgive them. I will never forgive them.
Really?
Never.
Even if you never speak to them again?
I don't speak to them again. I will never forgive them. What they did to me, because what it changed my view on myself. I spent years crawling out from under that rubble. I still doubt myself. I still don't feel safe in the world. They took away my safety. How the hell do you forgive that? I don't. And I sleep fine at night.
The thing would be, how do we find peace even if we don't forgive someone?
I think that people who don't forgive definitely feel peace.
Okay.
I think people who don't feel peace are the people who forgive and keep getting harmed.
Oh, that's
are the
true.
people who forgive and weren't ready to forgive. Individuating, becoming autonomous, and ultimately rising into your authentic self. That's what it is. And your authentic self may not forgive, and that's okay.
Wow. If you don't forgive, do you feel like you can truly heal?
Yes, 100%. 100%. Because not forgiving is an acknowledgement. I actually think the worst part is that this is somebody who left you feeling not enough, like there was something wrong with you when you were bringing the best of yourself forward. I have a problem with that. And I tell folks, some people get there. Some people will say, I was not able to forgive until I went no contact.
Yeah. You had a lot of time to heal and space.
And not be harmed by them. They said, some people say I forgave after they died. So they didn't hear it. But I think that we have this big pressure of forgive and everything.
You don't
will
have to
be
forgive them, like say it to them, but more to yourself.
Internally,
say,
right. But I in the cases I'm talking about, these people, I don't forgive.
Wow.
I really, really don't. It was wrong. It was wrong, and I know they keep doing wrong, and it harms me because it changed my insides.
Right.
And while I can take responsibility for my insides, why that wasn't okay. And I'm very, very clear on this. People, you can't forgive that. I said, if they can't forgive that, then they can't forgive that. Accept that, and these are not petty people. They really aren't. And they're not, and the criticism I've heard people get when they say they don't forgive is like, you're petty. You're the one with all the anger. You're the one with all the hate in your heart. I'm like, no, they're not. No, they're not. That it's a very personal decision. But I think because we view it as a one size fits all. And I think that then what happens is people can then allow their process. In fact, healing is easier when you don't have to forgive, because forgiveness is about the other person. Everyone's like, no, forgiveness is about yourself. No, it's not. Because you know what a narcissistic person does with forgiveness? They're like,
get
out of jail free card. I guess I can do this again.
Nothing I did was wrong. Yeah.
Or nothing I did was wrong. Because forgiveness works, Lewis, beautifully. I'm sure you've been forgiven at times in your life. I've been forgiven in times in my life, and I've forgiven many people. And when that forgiveness was met by that person forever committing to a change,
a behavioral change,
then it's the most beautiful human process, because we recognize that we're all flawed.
Yes.
But it has to be met with a change. Imagine you forgive someone, right? It's accountability. You forgive someone for cheating on you, and they cheat on you again. How do you think that feels for a person? It's worse than betrayal, because it's betrayal in the face of this divine offering you gave. Like, I forgave you.
And then you did it again.
And you did this after you promised you wouldn't. So it's like,
accepted that you need to look at the abusive people in your life as a grizzly bear. Not because they're that tough in life, but because we're in the age of division. And you're not meant to be in that toxic relationship anymore. And your body is trying to let you know. Let's talk now about what happens as a result. Based on some online articles here, hormonal changes. The hormonal changes, the irregularity that we talked about, include the release of a corticotrophin, I hope I said that right, releasing factor, CRF. This leads to changes in gut bacteria. So number one, we're talking about gut bacteria, changes in your gut and your digestive area, right? And the immune system, both of which contribute to IBS. Not only IBS as an issue, but anytime you mess with the gut bacteria, your digestive issues, well, now all of a sudden you're not processing nutrients the right way. And it starts to develop a whole host of issues, skin disorders, inflammation, the inability to absorb nutrients, all of this, all because of your constant fight or flight, because you're in a toxic relationship. That's number one. Here's another one. Emotional stressors can lead to ventricular ectopic beats and ventricular tachycardia. This is heart related. through disturbances of cardiac rhythm due to emotional stress. Emotional stress is caused by narcissistic abuse. This suggests that POTS patients may have elevated anxiety compared to healthy controls. I never heard of tachycardia until I started coaching people with the Royal We about 5 years ago. Through various phone calls with people, I started hearing stories of people being diagnosed with things like POTS syndrome, tachycardia, having heart issues. What's the common denominator with all these people I've dealt with? They're all in abusive relationships with narcissistically abusive people. They're in toxic, dysfunctional relationships with their own family members. That's the common denominator here. That's the heart. So far we've talked about digestive issues caused by narcissistic abuse, heart issues caused by narcissistic abuse. Watch this. Psychological stress is reported to be a risk factor for autoimmune diseases. First of all, what's psychological stress? Going out and working with your hands, doing your day job, that's not psychological stress. Society isn't psychological stress. Well, nowadays it can be. Psychological stress is through manipulation, gaslighting, betrayal through the people who say they love you, cognitive dissonance from those closest to you. This is psychological stress. Watch this. Psychological stress is reported to be a risk factor for autoimmune diseases, including Graves' disease and rheumatoid arthritis. Rheumatoid arthritis, different inflammations, are linked to autoimmune disorders, which are linked to psychological stress. Different types of stress and the length of time that stress is present might also affect the presentation of inflammatory autoimmune disease. There is no known one cause for autoimmunity. Physical and psychological stress has been implicated in the development of autoimmune disease, since numerous animal and human studies demonstrate the effect of sundry stressors on immune function. Also, it's important to understand that according to MedPub, the onset of at least 50% of autoimmune disorders has been attributed to unknown trigger factors. Anytime you see unknown trigger factors, it's a good indication that what they're trying to say is, we don't know, but chances are it's environmental, meaning a toxic relationship, narcissistic abuse, but websites, doctors aren't going to define that for you. You have to define that. I'm going to share with you my own personal experience. When I was 21, after I had gotten out of the dysfunctional, toxic household that I was brought up in my early 20s, I developed panic attacks. They were sudden. I had no idea where they came from, nor did the doctors that I saw. I remember my first panic attack. I was in a movie theater on a date, enjoying the company of a amazing young lady at that time. In the movie theater, hands started getting sweaty all of a sudden, heat waves going up and down my arms. My throat closed up. I felt like I was going to suffocate. I couldn't swallow. Tunnel vision. The theater started getting darker and darker. I bolted, went to the popcorn stand and said, call 911. I'm dying. They called 911. Ambulance showed up, threw me in the back of the ambulance, pricked my finger with all sorts of stuff. Everything there. They're like, okay, everything seems normal. You're all right. Got me to the ER. Started poking holes in me, IVs, this and that. And all the tests came back negative. The ER doctor, and then I followed up with my other doctor. They tried their best to explain to me panic attacks and anxiety without being able to tell me the cause, because that's not the doctor's responsibility, because they don't know. All the doctor was there to do was to tell me what anxiety and panic attacks are, but he's not a counselor. He's not a therapist. He's not going to start getting into, well, Kevin, tell me about your stepfather and your mother. And is your father in your life? Are you being emotionally, mentally abused, manipulated, gaslit, and betrayed? No, they're not going to do that. This is what I'm here to tell you. But he did explain to me panic attacks and how it affects the body. The good news is I was able to allow myself through dietary changes, lifestyle changes, and also a great distance between me and the household that I lived in. And by the way, back then there wasn't social media. There wasn't telephones, cell phones, and stuff like that. So it wasn't as hard to disconnect as it is today. Today, you have a more difficult time disconnecting from toxic relationships because you're on leashes with your social media, your telephones, email. They're like all electronic leashes. These are the first things that need to go when you go no contact, by the way. You have to cut all those chains. I digress. The next issue, medical issue that I dealt with was after I left the dysfunctional toxic situation in California and came to the Midwest. This was about 5 years ago. I was starting the Royal We. After I got away, came to the Midwest, I started to develop inflammation, an indication of the arthritis, the possibility of an onset of autoimmune. I didn't get that far, fortunately, but inflammation was something I was dealing with, and I didn't know why. And I went and was saw by the doctors, and they couldn't give me an answer as to why. Also, they wanted me to see rheumatologists and this and that, and I started to, but then they wanted to introduce medications. I'm like, nah, I'll follow the list of dietary changes. Good news for me is I was able to, again, manage these things through dietary change, but the most important thing I did was to detach from the toxic environment. So what do my illnesses and diseases that I've experienced have in common? They were immediately after I got out of a toxic environment. It teaches me that it was environmental. The narcissistic abuse manifested in illness and disease as part of my healing journey. The good news is that these things, and this is where I want to give you hope, it's possible to reverse these illnesses and diseases. You don't have to rely on medication alone. Now, I'm not telling you to stop medication. Go no contact. Break the trauma bonds. Through dietary change, through exercise, through refocusing your life, it's possible to not only break the trauma bonds, but also to reverse the illness and diseases.
Because what the enemy will often use is the family dynamic to pull you back into the vortex of familial patterns and familial ways of living. And it becomes this almost hypnotic pull that just put you into a sleepy coma back into the old ways, and will use guilt. Oh, you don't call me. You don't love me. I'm going to get more into that in the next story. Guilting you, putting guilt on you to make you feel bad. And it's manipulative. It's not freedom. It's not loving relationships. Loving relationships create freedom. Loving relationships encourage you making your decision to act out of love versus being controlled by someone else's agenda for you. This is so foreign to so many of us because we're used to living under the bondage of guilt. When we step out, we feel like it's too good to be true because we don't hear God nagging us all day long, but we're used to being nagged by guilt and checking for it and feeding it and living by it.
In front of the parents and in front of other people. When there's no one watching, that's when the little monsters come out. There's bullying, bickering, unkind humor. Part of sadism, 3 different ways sadistic behavior can behave or can manifest. There's physical, that's punching, kicking, breaking people's property, all that, assaults and so on. There's verbal, which is the threats, the insults and so on. So you can get a lot of threats, unkind humor, and it's not just a joke or a joke with a jag or a little bit of sarcasm. What we're looking at is sometimes humor that's aimed at humiliating. Mom or dad might say something. Somebody is crushed. Everybody's laughing. They now find it's okay to do and say the same thing. When mom and dad's not around, of course. The hostility is more about control and domination. It's nothing to do with conflict resolution. It also avoids emotional closeness and vulnerability.
I had a shadow box in the shower before I got here, just to prep to come see you, because I knew every conversation was going to feel like I was being audited. Last time I saw you, it took me 2 weeks to recover. You think this pimple is a coincidence? I don't think so. I don't even know why I keep going back. I think it's because you have like one good holiday when you're 7, and then you chase that high ever since. Every 2 hours, I go to the bathroom and scream into a decorative hand towel. No, it's going to be great. It's going to be great.
You know what's not talked about enough is sibling abuse in adulthood. Let's be honest, most of them just don't grow out of it from childhood. Yes, it does start in childhood. One dominates while the other one just learns how to survive. And the ones who are really to blame in childhood are the parents, because most of the time it's shrugged off as, sibling rivalry. And then in adulthood, it's don't make your sister or your brother upset. Okay, we know how they are. You're expected to shrink to not upset the abusive sibling. And they just continue to bully you. And this shows up in the form of gaslighting, gossiping about you, humiliating you, kind of the small digs just to make you feel really small. And it's in the form of isolation, where they become like a poison, trying to isolate you from all the people that you really thought loved you. And that isolation just slowly erodes at your confidence. Of the betrayal and the gossip and the pain, all of these things just start to build up, and over time your nervous system is clearly wired for survival. You end up with chronic anxiety and PTSD. Not only does this erode the trust that you have for yourself, but also it shows up in every relationship, and you learn to stay small just to keep the peace. Isn't that what you've been taught all along? To shrink yourself for survival. So how does this cycle end? What do we do to stop it? Well, first we have to call it for what it is, which is abuse. Sibling abuse is a real thing. Naming it changes everything. And then I want you to find a therapist who specializes in this type of complex trauma. It doesn't require just surface level therapy. This is nervous system work, inner child repair, and honestly, you're relearning safety. With the right therapist, you will not have to do the heavy lifting anymore alone. Here is the thing about being the abusive person. The abuser may stop abusing you. They will always find another target. That is, until they actually learn to do the work and find accountability themselves. Ending the cycle really does mean learning to speak the truth, set boundaries, find a good therapist who will help you through all of the trauma. Last but not least, learning to be accountable. And if you're the one being abused, be accountable for the part you keep playing in your own abuse. Step away. You have that right. I love you guys.
They didn't mean it. They've been through a lot. And before you know it, you've become so understanding of their behavior that you've stopped being understanding of your own pain. Listen, You can have compassion for someone's wounds and still hold them accountable for how they treat you. You can forgive someone and still say, I don't deserve this. You can love someone deeply and still walk away from repeated disrespect. Being kind doesn't mean accepting things that keep hurting you. Being patient doesn't mean having no boundaries. And being understanding should never come at the cost of abandoning yourself. Don't get so busy giving grace to other people that you stop protecting your own heart.
People who had access to you had no idea how unreachable you are to other people until they became other people. And that's okay, there's no resentment, no revenge, no hard feelings. But access to me was never free. It was earned. You got my time, you got my attention, you got my energy. You got the version of me that very few people ever get. And then you made a choice. So now when I see you, I smile. I wish you well. I genuinely hope that life is good to you. But you don't get access anymore, not because I'm angry, because my peace matters, my time matters, and I matter. You're not my enemy. You are not somebody I hate. You are just other people now.
How do you handle people who are intentionally mean?
When they say something mean, I want you to envision it as if something has come out of their mouth and just fallen to the floor. And you get to choose to take 5 to 7 seconds of nothing. And you can look down as if you're not really sure if they're good with that. You can look down and look back up at them as if, is that what you're proud of saying? And if that 5 to 7 seconds passes and they don't say anything else, that's where you get to say, I need you to say that again to me. I need you to repeat that. If that doesn't feel comfortable for you, then I'm going to encourage you to ask a question of, did you mean? Did you intend for that to sound as mean as it did? You'd be surprised about what they said. Maybe they're going to double down on it. Maybe they're going to go, you know what? I mean, you always just, and they're going to try and adjust it or capitulate in some way. But if they do double down and they go, yes, you know what? I did want that to hurt you. I did want that to be mean. You get to take even more time and say, I thought so. Thank you. And you leave it with them, because what they say, you do not have to receive. You do not have to attend every argument you're invited to. So,
The life of the scapegoat child, past trauma, present issues, future healing. Here's the family scapegoat, a child who's being blamed, ignored and dismissed by their family. They're receiving a lack of validation, a lack of love, a lack of nurturance, and often being criticised, demeaned and belittled. Their accomplishments are being ignored and minimised, and they're being bullied by the golden child, the sibling. All of this past trauma is creating these present issues whereby they're struggling. They picked up people pleasing as a learned behaviour to feel safe, to avoid this. There's an abandonment wound due to the emotional neglect that they've received, and there's a fear of criticism. They have triggers around criticism, and they become an overachiever. They achieve their goals for validation because they never got it when they were a kid, and they're allowing mistreatment and bullying. There are bullies in their personal and professional life. Over here is the healing for the scapegoat child, whereby they become free when they prioritise their own needs and they are feeling safe and secure in give and take healthy relationships. And they're healing their emotional neglect wounds via secure attachment towards self, lots of self-love practices. And they're healing their triggers around criticism, or they're giving boundaries around consistent criticism. They're working on their self-confidence and self-trust, and they're achieving their goals from a sense of authenticity. They're following their purpose for that as opposed to validation. And there's boundaries around mistreatment. They are no longer the scapegoat, they are the goat.
What they're going to do and recognize, okay, that's a person that's 8 years old. And only they can do the work to learn a different way to cope with their emotions. And now let me choose. How do I want to respond to this?
Okay, listen up, everybody. What she just described is how a securely attached person handles ghosting, or handles somebody that withdraws from conflict, withdraws from connection because they're overwhelmed. Securely attached people let others have their feelings, have their perceptions of us, have whatever the thoughts and feelings they're having, without being overly stressed by it. And then we allow ourselves to choose whatever response is most in alignment with our principles.
About me is
I genuinely like myself. Like, I really love myself. I love being with myself. Like, I love my energy. I love my thoughts. I love my conversations with myself. You will not come around me with your half-ass energy thinking I'm going to allow you to stay. Get the fuck out of my face.
Who wants to fight? Right? So the person who's like that, waiting for the sucker punch, waiting to punch people, we treat that person like they're crazy, right? Because sucker punches are not supposed to be that common. Unfortunately, they're quite common in these relationships. But just like the person we think is kind of off by always be like, who's gonna sneak up? Who's gonna get me? The person in the narcissistic relationship will say, oh my gosh, I am so anxious. I am so worried. What's gonna happen after this event? What's gonna happen during this event? And people say, relax. Just be present. Stay in the moment. Without knowing, you stay in the damn moment or not. You've been to this rodeo before. You know what's very likely to happen. Again, at that pit of doom, that even just the presence of a happy event or a difficult day or a workplace success, instead of you being able to take care of you or lean into those days, you still have to put a lot of bandwidth in being worried.
I felt Miley Cyrus when she said, I don't talk badly about you. I talked about what you did to me. If that makes you look bad, that's between you and your behavior, because telling the truth about my experiences isn't bitterness, it's clarity. And I'm not responsible for protecting someone's image when they had no problem damaging my peace. Sometimes the truth only sounds harsh because someone benefited from the silence.
Oh, and there's Lexi Hall. You can see both of her eyes.
Gabby Williams got hit in the forehead, and it caused 2 black eyes. And you can still see some of the remnants of them, and now she's sporting the bloody lip. She is...
Wait till I get my money right. I had a dream I could buy my way to heaven. When I awoke, I spent that on a neck.
Somebody asked me today on Instagram Live, how do you work through the smear campaign? And honestly, the best advice that I can ever give, advice I wish I would have taken much sooner when I was going through the worst of mine, is to not defend yourself, dude. Just shut up, be quiet, let people talk, and focus on yourself. People are looking for a reaction from you. They want your attention, they want your energy, they want you to flip and spaz the hell out, and you do not have to give that to them. If you can just stand back and be the observer, you're gonna realize who your true allies are. Smear campaigns are actually an opportunity for you to clear out your circle. Trust and believe those who don't really have your back will be unmasked. Much as that shit hurts, dude, they're doing you a solid favor. The wisest decision that you can ever make is to let your actions, your character, your truth speak for itself. You do every single day on a consistent basis is gonna reveal exactly who you are in time. Truth will always vibrate way higher than their lies, which is why you need to just live in it. They want to pull you out of character. So when you don't give that to them, you focus on you, working on you, improving you. Eventually, I promise you, everybody's going to see them for exactly who they are, and you're going to be illuminated for everything that you are, everything that you had to go through. Everything in the dark will come to the light. You have to learn how to not care what people think about you. Let this be that lesson for you. Keep your head up, stay strong, you got this.